Today, on Digital Marketing Masters, with your host, Matt Rose, who has mostly lost his voice. IP attorney Karin Coger talks about artificial intelligence and intellectual property, boom, and copyright, and the law in the United States.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Digital Marketing Masters. My guest today is Karin Coger, and Corinne is an IP attorney. Sorry, IP. I have to try and enunciate everything clearly because I had the flu last week and I kind of lost my voice. Corinne, how are you doing?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Matt, for having me onto the show. So yes, definitely, I am an IP attorney. I enjoy it, but I'm also an AI, artificial intelligence certified consultant. So I think that's how I landed here on this show.
That's right. When I was at the Marketing AI convention, I think that the talk that had the most people go to it was the IP, intellectual property, and AI talk.
Okay.
And so when we connected, I was like, oh my gosh, people love this topic. And I think it's also super valuable because not only do you not want to get sued for things, but you also want to know, what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And I know we have international listeners, but I think obviously we're going to focus on US law since you're in the United States.
Okay.
But a lot of that carries over to other places, right? So what do you think is kind of the blind spot that people have when it comes to AI and intellectual property?
I think the blind spot is that people think they can hop on AI, whether it's Gemini, whether it's Copilot, whether it's ChatGPT, insert their prompt. So ask the AI what they want, get the response, and then they want to register it either with I'm in the US, so the US Copyright Office or the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And both offices have different rules. So for instance, for patents right now, the rule is disclose the fact that you use AI to help you with your invention. However, AI is not one of the inventors. Right. For copyrights, if you write a book, a magazine, record a video like this, the podcast, and you use AI, they, number one, want you to disclose it. But number two, they want a majority of what you are doing and what you're trying to register to be human-based. So when I say majority, I think 51%. For trademarks have always been difficult because a lot of people will hire a graphic designer and they might just go on Google and take somebody else's trademark and they give it to you and you register it and you find out it's somebody else's trademark. But with trademarks, you can trademark something you made with AI, but you should give something with some human value to it.
Right. So I think on the when you're talking about the majority written, something that I did when I was researching my book, Will AI Take My Job, is that it's completely human written, but I have 3 takeaways at the end of each chapter, which actually use ChatGPT to create the takeaways. But I intentionally did that, right? Because I wanted to show how AI can be used, in writing. But one of the actual original stumbling blocks I had was that when I first wrote it, I wrote the foreword was written by ChatGPT, and Amazon wouldn't allow my book to be published because it had too much AI content according to the rules. But by the time I had it finished editing and stuff and I was going to publish it, they had relaxed those rules. So then I was able to publish it. So it was interesting how the law was changing so quickly that, in 3 months, it went from not allowed to publish to, now we're going to use an AI to put your book on Audible.
Exactly. Right? Like I always say, technology moves faster than the law. It takes a lot to change the law. So that's why they're having these initiatives or, orders, or something like that to determine what you're going to do. I always suggest to people, if you're writing a book and you're using an LLM, put it through one of the websites that do detect. Like, do you think, this is based on AI? The other thing that I do, and I don't know if you've done this, Matt, is that you can train ChatGPT to think and talk like you.
Right.
And that is huge. So the way that you do that is, first of all, you use it, right?
Right.
Second of all, take transcripts of something like this, you know, a webinar, something you taught, get the transcript of it, upload it into ChatGPT, and ask them, can you analyze the way I think, I speak, and I just do things? And then when you go into the personalization tab in the settings, you can copy and paste what they said. So therefore, ChatGPT now talks more like you do, and it's not very ChatGPT-ish.
That's right. I also found a good way that you can do that is you can create a document that has like, these are examples of writing in my style that I like, and these are examples of things I don't want. Right. And you can just explicitly say what those are in the document and then upload it every time that you want it to do some writing, you know, maybe ideation for you, or, you know, it's writing a blog post or a social post or something that you're going to edit after. We always use human editing in our work, the agency. We want to put some eyeballs on it, you know, for sure, just in case something weird happened, you know. And a lot of people are worried about hallucination in systems, which the hallucination rate is now very, very low. Like, honestly, I would say it's lower than most of the like screw up level of most people. So, but what we're looking for is if the AI lost the plot, you know.
Right.
So we asked it to write about XYZ, and it wrote about XYA.
Right.
And kind of veered off and went down some weird rabbit hole that we didn't want it to, kind of thing.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that in the US. There have actually been similar cases about attorneys who submitted briefs to the court using AI, and they just made up cases. So when they looked them up, they weren't there. And I did a report one time about Madam C.J. Walker. She was like the first African-American billionaire in the US. And I put in information because I studied her. I was like, this doesn't sound right. You know, so you still have to check your AI. Now, if you have companies like Lexus, they will tell you, all right, if you're doing AI through us, it's coming through Lexus. So therefore it's authentic, but I would say always check it. Yeah.
I think a good kind of rule of thumb is the more important it is to be right, the more you need to check it.
Yeah.
So if it's, you know, a diagnosis for a medical thing and the patient could be injured or killed, if it's not, you better have an MD check it, right?
But I'm literally laughing at you because I have gotten like, I've gone to the doctor, got a letter in the mail. The follow-up is like in a month. So I uploaded it. I was like, what does this mean?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times that's an excellent use for AI, is just pasting in something and saying, what does this mean? Or is this true? Right. And, you know, there's a really good study that was done. I don't remember who did it off the top of my head, but I remember Ethan Mollick was talking about it. And essentially it was the more you use the chat system, the more likely you are to believe it. And so what happens is over time, it gives you so many right answers that you just think all the answers are going to be right. And that's when something's going to happen, right?
Yeah, that is true, especially when you personalize it. Like when you get to that point where the system is talking to you the way you talk, the way you trained it, you're automatically thinking like, okay, it's right, you know, because they're talking like me, but you should definitely still check for authentication.
Right. I like to use AI agents that are kind of trained where I've given them a personality and an image, you know, for who they are and stuff. And for me, it's a way to separate what the function of that kind of agent is. So if I'm going to use one that is working with like writing Python code or something for me, you know, I have one that her name is Glinda, the Python coding agent woman, you know, and then I have like Zing, the companion robot, who is excellent at using computer use. Like if it's gonna go on a browser and fill out a form or something, right?
Right.
And so I have these little agent names and pictures to kind of almost trick my brain into which one does which thing, like which employee is this kind of thing.
Nice. I like that.
Which is kind of ironic since I wrote, the book about if AI is going to take your job. Then I have little AI employees, but mostly they do my work. So, nobody lost their job to my AI except me.
Do you manage a local business or a biz with a service area? S&B Autopilot is the magic pill for your local business marketing. Get more calls, more clients, more patients, more buyers, more people finding you instead of your competitors. Check out S&B Autopilot.ai for more details. Now back to the show.
So I want to ask you this about image generators. I know that the law has recently kind of shifted in the United States around images. And I think probably the biggest topic is if somebody uses some images that they generated, do they own the copyright to the image or not?
Nope. So I tell people very simply, you trademark your brand, you copyright your content. If you did not create that content yourself, you do not own it.
Right.
However, anybody can put Circle C on whatever their content is. But there is definitely a difference between putting the Circle C and actually registering it in the Copyright Office. So
Right.
if you have a situation and you said, I copyright this, somebody stole it from me, you can kind of retroactively apply for it with the Copyright Office, because this is what happens when you see things that go viral, real quick. Somebody has a great TikTok and everybody's, all excited about it and it got 1 million views. So the next day, 5 random people will try to register either trademarks or copyrights for whatever that creator said.
Right.
China is a first to file country. The United States is a first to use country. So therefore, when they do that, you can combat it and say, this was my video or this was my post or
Right.
this was
I created it before it was registered.
Yeah. You have to
I also,
use
well, I was going to say, I have a client of ours who makes artwork that goes on products. And what they do a lot of times is they'll use an AI system to create parts of the artwork, and then they're usually illustrating over top of it. So it could be a background, it could be figures, it could be something, and then they're kind of like the writing idea, right? The majority is their illustration.
Okay.
So is that copyrightable in that case?
It could be. So because they are giving their own work to that work, yes, you can register it for the copyright with the Copyright Office. I think the main thing is just being honest with these agencies. Hey, I use 30% generated AI, and the 70% is what I do. I'm sure the Copyright Office is going through a whole bunch of changes right now because of AI and copyright.
Right.
How do you check it? There's
That's
so many checkers. So I'm sure that's what happened with you when you had your book on Amazon. They scan it and they will tell you, oh, we feel like this much was, generated.
Yeah. Well, back then it was voluntary reporting, but the AI checkers are an interesting thing because they tend to get used a lot in schools and education institutions. And most of the studies find that they have a very high false positive rate, especially for people who don't have English as a first language.
Right.
Which obviously puts them in a difficult position. But I think, and you as an attorney would know better than me, but my suggestion is always to have a policy about it first before you start trying to kick people out of school for using AI and stuff. or your company or your organization should have an AI use policy, like a blanket policy to start with?
And I absolutely had a case like that. So I had a school that I was representing. Somebody created something in the school based upon the school's rules. Yes, that was owned by the school, but it wasn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Solidify what belongs to the school and what belongs to the creator and what is AI.
Yeah, that's a tough distinction, I think. I find there's going to be a lot of interesting IP stuff coming up. Like a really good example is I have a photograph of kind of people sitting around a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And we used an AI to kind of pan across the photograph and have the fire burning, right? So now I've turned a photograph into a video. So does the original photographer own the rights to it, or do I own the rights to it, to the video now?
The original photographer owns the rights to that. If you want it to be yours, there needs to be a copyright transfer agreement.
Okay.
And,
yeah. I mean, we had permission to use it.
Something that says that you have permission, right? And then with that, when you talk to the people that may be in the photograph, I always disclose in the contract, this may be altered by AI. However, it will only be altered, quote unquote, to make it better, not to change anything that's very distinctive, but just to make this better. So before you and I, got on the recorded call, we talked about so those are the things that you take out. So let's say you have a picture, and there's somebody in the background that you don't want in that picture, and you remove them. But the biggest thing is letting people know that you are using AI to do this.
So you would suggest that if people have like model release contracts or something, that they put AI editing into those contracts? Oh, maybe my second last question, unless we have to follow it up a little bit. What do you think that, for the average business owner, what can they do to kind of protect the intellectual property of their company and that, maybe their employees or their agencies are creating for them?
Okay. So what I find is the average business owner puts IP on the back burner, which they should not. IP should be on the front burner. So when you're coming up with a name for your company and your marketing materials, you should at least consult with an IP attorney to determine whether or not that name or that logo or that saying is available, right? And then you should work with them throughout this, because what happens is people create content. And when I say content now, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a video, whether it's marketing material, whether you have a very special way that you onboard your clients and you put it in writing, all of that should be protected, by IP. And what happens is, again, a lot of people don't do it, and then they get a cease and desist letter. And in the US, if the petitioner or opposer filed for that copyright, they can sue, and it can win up to $150,000, and they can send you cease and desist letters. So
right, yeah, that's obviously a problem. One thing actually that I also wanted to ask you that we kind of talked a little bit about before the show, you have mentioned about kind of anonymizing the information that you're putting into systems like ChatGPT because you don't want to, or maybe in your case, you have confidentiality with clients and you're not allowed to send information. So how does that work? Like, how are you kind of anonymizing the information you're using?
It works for me very well, but I only use it in the IP space. So for instance, for me, if I'm working on a trademark client, I just don't put in the name of the trademark owner, right? But in other practice areas, it could be different. So if you're working on a divorce case, you may not want to put that person into whatever LLM you're using, but you just put the situation in and use that, and then ask for cases.
I think that's interesting. The attorney or the family law angle, like a divorce attorney or something like that, because we used to do some advertising with a family law attorney who's retired now, but their first client that they had gotten since they hired us, they asked them, how did you find out about us? And they said that they got ads for the family law attorney for a week before their spouse gave them papers for divorce. Okay. So the predictive advertising system had predicted that they were going to get divorced and started advertising to them in advance, which is both, good for the attorney to get the client, but also kind of frightening from a privacy standpoint. So, correct. That's how you understand what information you want or don't want to give out online, whether it's an LLM or a search engine or whatever.
I had that situation. I went to a friend's house. The friend and I are social media friends on all platforms. Her cousin was there. We just talked. We did not exchange social media. The next day, she popped up in my Instagram.
That's right.
Like, okay, you were listening to me, Meta, aka Mark Zuckerberg, because how does she now show up?
Or they have the location data on the phones being in the same place, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, that kind of data is everywhere. So, protect your data, people.
I kind of feel like all the tech giants and all the government know everything about me. I've just submitted to that.
Yeah. Plus there's so many data leaks all the time that, all your spending habits get released and things. But there is, honestly, where I live, that's not the case yet, because most people barely have good enough internet that anybody could steal their data in the first place, or people live off grid and stuff. But it's still important to have an understanding of privacy and what information that you're giving away when you're using things. Like when you're using Instagram or using Facebook or the TikTok or whatever, and you're using it for free, right? They're collecting the data. That's how they make the money, right? Use the data for advertising.
Yeah, interrupt you for 1 second because I want to give an example. For right now, we're on StreamYard. So on the right, it says we use cookies. So then there's a button, accept all cookies or customize cookies. I always customize cookies. I only allow them to get the information that they need. The other cookies are usually, can we use you for advertising? Can we follow you for advertising? Most people just select accept all because they don't know what it is.
Yeah, the advertising and marketing cookies are for retargeting systems, but also all that data gets sent to usually both Meta and Google and Microsoft. So all of them. As someone who does advertising, I understand how these platforms work. I understand how the data collection works. If you're using, what I was going to say is, if you're using an AI for free, then your training data, everything you put into it is training data for them.
Absolutely.
Right? But if you pay for it, you can opt out of having your information being used as training data. So you can also delete things that you've put into it, if they're no longer relevant or you don't want someone to find them or whatever, right? So I think it's important to pay for the AI system because it gives you the option to keep your data private. And also it supports those systems with a model of revenue where they don't have to steal your data and give it to advertisers, right?
Absolutely. I pay for the systems that I use. I suggest that everybody pay for them if you are in that situation. If you're just like a random person that's like, hey, I have cabbage, chicken, and a red pepper, in my refrigerator. Chat GPT, can you give me a recipe? No big deal.
Right.
And I have done that. But if you're using it for business, that you don't want out there for everybody, I would suggest paying for it and electing not to allow them to use your data.
Yeah, I saw or I listened to a podcast on the artificial intelligence podcast. Anyways, he was saying it's a slippery slope with the data, right? What happens is it's right now it's what can I make out of cabbage and chicken, and next week it's what should I do if my girlfriend's breaking up with me,
Yeah.
right? So it's a slippery slope, people. So just pay for it, get it over with, and
What's crazy is, and this I'm married right now, but people are literally using these LLMs for dating sites. They will like upload the profile of the person and say to the LLM, what should I say to her? What should I say to him? So it's not even really the real person. It's just what the LLM, decided that this was important. And that's a little scary.
It is. And honestly, if I was gonna, like, I'm a married person, but if I was gonna use a dating app, I would highlight my whole profile and paste it into ChatGPT and say, how do you think I can improve this?
Absolutely.
Right?
I did that with LinkedIn. So it doesn't have to be a dating app, but I absolutely did that with LinkedIn and asked them to rewrite my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. And I mean, I honestly, I have this kind of like, I'm kind of two minds about a lot of stuff where I say, okay, well, I'm going to use AI to help me with these things, but these other things are things that I'm just going to do myself. And it's not like a line in the sand. Like someday maybe I'll use it to fix up my LinkedIn, but I enjoy writing, right? So I'll write on LinkedIn, but I got to like write a blog for the 47th time about some product, that a company has that we do work for.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't want to write about it. This maybe I'm not feeling it today. I'll go ahead and I'll say, give me 10 ideas. It'll give me those. I'll pick 3 of them. I'll say, let's explore these, put it into the research tool, get some stuff back. And I'll say, hey, you know what? Let's write about this blog, but let's take this angle on it. Let's have this kind of twist at the end or whatever. And then it comes out and I'm like, there we go. Send her to the editor.
I do the same. And then I just put like an asterisk at the bottom. Like this was powered by ChatGPT. Just letting you know.
Yeah, I
don't want to fake it.
Yeah, if it's like something with my name on it, I'm going to use an AI use disclosure, right? Like if it's a presentation or something, I'll say all the background images in this presentation are made in Midjourney.
How do you like new Midjourney?
I love it. I use it every day. I used it today about 8 times.
Nice.
But I also use Flux Ultra.
Okay. What? I haven't heard of that one. Flex Ultra?
Yeah, it's Flux, Flux. I use it through an API, so I'm not sure how available it is directly online. But also the other one is if you need something that you can't get past the filters, you can use Grok, the XAI, for it. I don't like to use it, but I will use it if I need an image or something that I need raw mode. Flux Ultra also has a raw image mode. Okay. So like a good example is I was trying to make an image of a person standing on top of a box speaking to a bunch of other people. But for some reason it thought that this was some political commentary or something. And I'm like, I just want somebody standing on a box.
A political rally.
Yeah. So anyways, I was able to create that in, using raw mode and Flux, or I made a couple of it in X and it worked fine. But yeah, I think there's a lot of options out there for AI as well that people maybe not be familiar with. So if you're not getting what you want out of the system you're using, there's probably 10 other systems that do it 10 different ways. Yep. And you can go try one of those too.
Yeah, I think one of the problems now is that because AI has become so prevalent and everybody can use it, like when you see a story or you see a news source, I'm looking for the source. I'm looking for the actual source because is this the real picture? Are these the real people? Is this the real story? So that has given an added level of my protection in terms of what I put out in the world.
Yeah, I think that's going to get easier as the AIs kind of start getting from training runs into training updates, right? Where it gets updated constantly.
Right.
And that should be coming, with the next versions, your Chat GPT 5 kind of thing.
Right.
Karin, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, they need an IP attorney, they want to just talk about AI and the law, what's the best way for them to find you?
I'm available on all socials. So that is KarinCoger COGERESKO. So that's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky, because I left the other app.
Yeah, I love the Blue Sky. Honestly, I use it every day.
We can talk about that offline. I love Blue Sky.
That's right. We'll connect on Blue Sky if we're not already on there. I think we might already be connected, honestly.
Thanks for listening to Digital Marketing Masters with Matt Rouse and Karin Coger.
Karin, thank you so much for coming. This is a topic that I think a lot of people find super important right now. And yeah, I really I enjoy you coming and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, if you think you're hot and you got a lot from the show today, leave a review on Google Play or